makes it a little, because we're on separate tracks, so you can adjust it a little bit.
Yeah, I will adjust it and equalize it and normalize all the loudness and make sure it sounds good for Spotify and all that jazz when I go to mess with it on the computer.
So if I decide to, maybe I'll move it kind of,
man, however you're comfortable.
Just in case I decide to lean back, because I don't know if I want to be all leaned forward the whole time.
You can definitely make it to however you're comfortable.
Yeah, this is probably all right.
All right, cool. So, let's see. I think you sound good. I think I sound good. And if any of that changes, it's my problem later. So,
Okay.
so it's all good, man. I'll go ahead and do my intro.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas. This is the newest episode of the KAAMP. That is the Knoxville Area Artist Network and Platform podcast thing. And today we have someone who's not native to Knoxville or a Knoxvillian at all. But you know what? It's my show and I do what the hell I want. So, will you please introduce yourself, friend?
Sure. Well, hello. Hello, I go by Zim, Z-I-M. And let's see what else I could say. This could be it. You might not have to ask another question. I could just introduce myself and just keep going.
Yeah, you can keep talking. If I don't say another word now, it'll be just fine.
Well, I'm an artist. How I introduce myself on my own like outlets is I say I'm an artist, art professor, podcaster, also like I game stream every once in a while. I do a lot of different things. I have like all the outlets. I got the YouTube. I got all the socials that I promote or publish on all the time. What did I say where I'm from? I'm kind of from Seattle, is like where I was raised. I was in San Diego for a while, and last year I was in Missouri teaching at Northwest Missouri State University doing kind of graphic design focus sort of, but I'm like interdisciplinary artist is really what I kind of do. It's kind of how we met, through the art. I have an exhibition going on right now in Nashville, Tennessee at the Hiram Van Gordon Gallery at Tennessee State University. And one thing I did want to say straight out the gate was I am, also in, I guess, solidarity with the Free Palestine movement and what's happening right now with that. A lot's been going on. I hope that our administration has changes their stance on foreign policy for now. Like, I won't go too deep into it, but just to say that I am with the students that are protesting. I'm with the people of Palestine that are, hoping for, freedom from their oppression. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. And one other thing I want to say off the top, if you do enjoy this conversation, I mentioned,
plug your stuff. Yeah, for sure.
I do the YouTube. So if there's any place that you want to support me because you enjoyed it, YouTube is where I'm looking for the most support, just more subscribers. So it's youtube.com/thezimvideo. Maybe you'll be able to link it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have all the links in the description.
Yeah. So, okay, that's good enough for an intro, and we can do questions or whatever more as we go.
You have a line in your Instagram bio, "I'd rather die in a Jaeger." And when I met you the other day at the gallery, you had a Gundam or a Jaeger or a giant robot piloted by a human stuck to the top of your easel. And I knew that was going to be the thing I asked you first once we got the microphones. So tell me the story about that glorious piece of plastic you have on your easel.
Okay. Yeah. That's it's Jetfire. If anybody knows, Transformers Generation 1. Jetfire. I bought it actually. So I'm gonna get nerdy about this.
Run it.
Back in the day, so I'm old enough that I was around when the Generation 1 cartoon was aired originally, and that was my favorite. So back in my era, G.I. Joe and Transformers were like the two main kind of I don't know, toy / cartoon / pop culture thing that a lot of kids got into. I definitely had my G.I. Joes, but I was gravitated way more toward Transformers because I like the tech aspect, like the techno, I guess you could say, but also the fact that you got a character and a vehicle in one, right?
Yeah. 2 for 1. That's so cool.
Where growing up, my parents were, I wouldn't say, well, let's just say it was hard for them to buy lots of stuff. So, GI Joes, it was always like I could get the figures, but I couldn't get the vehicles because they were more expensive, and so I didn't really have many vehicles. But Transformers, I was able to get the toys, and it was kind of both. But then I was just gravitated toward that kind of concept more than the GI Joe concept, and it just kind of stuck with me. And then so I was also a little more nerdy than most of my peers and lasted longer than most of my peers when my classmates started to get out of that kind of stuff. Me and a couple of my friends started buying those off of my classmates. So we would go to their houses and we would buy the Transformers they didn't want and things like that. So that particular Jetfire I bought off a friend of mine in like 8th grade or so, and I've had it ever since. So I still have. It's the only collection of toys that I still have from my youth is my collection of Transformers, and I've collected more throughout the days. And people that know me, like my bandmates and things like that, that I've had in the past, have bought me, Transformers for birthday gifts or given me theirs for birthday gifts and things like that. So I've collected even more as time has gone on, and none of them are like mint condition. They're all battle. I call them battle, like scarred, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I have it. I brought it with me in my with the art exhibition, partly because whenever I do my live streams, he's usually in it. I like try to prop him up in my live stream, whatever I'm doing, gaming or art making, so you could kind of see him somewhere in the live stream. And so this art exhibition that I just did was I did 13 days of live streaming the drawings that I made for the exhibition. I'll say what that is real quick. It's 72 drawings of Justin Jones, 69 drawings of Justin Pearson. We'll probably go deeper into this later, but it was I was in the gallery drawing them, just amplify the call for gun reform, amplify the thoughts or what was going on with the whole idea of that moment where they got voted out and why that happened. And we're coming up on election season, so remembering that there's a lot of people in our society that we should be really conscious about who we're electing, because we don't basically want a fascist society, so we got to like be aware of what's happening right now. So anyways, knowing that I was going to be live streaming, I brought him with me to be kind of in the live stream. Although I don't think the camera caught him very often. I don't think he was there, but I just taped him to the top of my easel because I did another live stream similar where I drew 116 drawings of Katanya Brown Jackson, and that's where I taped him in that one. So, that one, I think he was in the live stream more often, but he was there. So that's the story of, and then it was kind of like also bringing my studio in a sense into the gallery space. So it's not just the fact that it's like I'm live streaming these drawings. It's like pretending almost like this is now my studio for the next 13 days. So what could I do to make it a little more sort of comfortable for me or something like that? Or like that idea of bringing the artist space into the white space.
Right.
And so that's kind of how that works. And
So
then just real quick before you jump in. So you mentioned that I'd rather die in Jaegers
yeah.
on my profile on Instagram, which is a reference from Pacific Rim, and I have the tattoo on my arm. It says I'd rather die in Jaeger. So
Nice.
that's what, and that's another story.
Well, I saw that, and then I got there, and then there was the Transformer up there, so I was just like, all right, we're going to talk about this.
I'm much more of a big robots, all the way through, like Robotech, Voltron, any, all the anime from whenever. I don't remember all the, like what are the Gundam and all that stuff. Like anything with big robots, especially if they transform kind of or something like that, I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna be like, yeah, let's see. I've been dying for, and I know right now on Netflix, I think there's a J-Lo movie that just came out that she's like in a robot thing. I don't know what that's about.
I saw the title card thing for it last night for the first time.
Yeah, so I haven't checked that out yet, but I'm waiting for a really, really good version of either like a BattleTech or a Robotech kind of iteration in cinema, and it hasn't happened yet. And it could happen because we're there with the visuals could make it happen. It's just making sure the story's good and all that stuff. And I was disappointed. So Ready Player One is my favorite book of all time now. And in the book, they have this, it would have been an amazing sequence of that if they did it, but they changed it for the movie, which they still had some of it, but it wasn't quite what I was hoping for. But anyways, okay, there you go.
Giant robots, hell yeah.
Giant yeah. Let's
Giant
go.
robots, hell yeah. Well, as a person into things, giant robots and anime and Power Rangers and Pacific Rim and that whole like giant robots versus giant monsters
Yeah.
scenario has always captured a lot of my attention too. So that's like I really had to dive in
Okay,
right
okay,
there.
cool. Well, that's about you got about all I do. So, like, I don't know everything about the giant, like, what, kaijus in a sense of all of that history. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you much there. I just like the robot side, you
Yeah, that's
know?
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the more human aspect
Yeah.
of it because they're humanoid mostly, and there's usually a person in them, so it all works
I
out.
just wish, it's like the idea of like piloting like a Jaeger or piloting something like that is just like, man, I wish,
Oh, I know, so bad.
God,
I would love. I could die a happy man.
I know, right? And thinking about it, like, each version has their own kind of way it works, right? Like Robotech, you're like a pilot, and but then there's other ones kind of like um Pacific Rim where you're kind of in an armature in a way that you kind of move and the
Yeah.
robot moves how you would move. But it's all like, yeah, and it's like how would it really work, you know? But
There's a lot of different solutions for it in the media. So
yeah.
there's a everybody has their own take on it, which is really cool. And if everybody hears a little jingly bell running around the living room, that's because there's a kitten here with a jingle bell on its collar. So you're not crazy, at
Yeah.
least not as crazy as you thought.
It's
There
cute.
there is a cat,
It's a cute
and it
little cat.
is running all over the place. So, um, if you could take us through a journey of your mediums, like
Oh yeah,
what
yeah.
did you start with as a kid? Where are you working now? What's in between?
Sure, yeah. When I was a kid, basically like drawing. So what made me feel confident about being an artist or a creative person, I guess, in general, was just drawing in classes, going back to sort of not quite the giant robot idea, but like we used to draw battleships. We used to draw these. We would take like 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and tape them together, so they'd be like these long, like whatever kind of thing, maybe three of them, and then we draw these kind of long battleships, and then we kind of like have them battle each other in these long. And that was just something I remember doing. And then when I was in like just art class all the way through like eighth grade, basically, it was clear that I had an aptitude for it. And then I would get praise, the praise,
Yeah,
the
reinforcement.
reinforcement. So that was like, okay, this is what I can. And then also my dad, he's a carpenter, woodworker, artist. Mainly he focused on woodworking. And so I grew up in a wood shop. So I was always around building and creating. And then my life, I grew up in a house that was in constant remodel. So it was like always like helping build things and make things. So that was like a big part of my journey as a young person. When I was in high school, I was the trifecta of art, music, and athletics. Actually, that was my main thing. I'm dyslexic, so I'm not bad at academics, but I'm not great. I would never put myself in a position to like I wouldn't be so. An example, if there was a spelling bee, I would try to sit down before even going. Like I would just leave me out of this, but they forced you into it.
Yeah.
So I just acted. And then math, it's like I was decent at math, but nowadays it's like trying to do mental math. It's just like I don't even try anymore. I just like give me a calculator, let me just do it. I'm not even gonna to pretend that I'm gonna be able to answer this quickly. Even if I know it, it's just like whatever. So, but anything physical. So like the sort of the three things, creative and physical, I guess. So making art. So in high school, I was in just art, and then it was like an AP or honors art or whatever they called it. I did all 4 years of art, all 4 years of music, and all 4 years of athletics, mainly running. I did cross country. But while I was in high school art, it was just drawing again, a little airbrush type of work we would do. That we had an airbrush booth there. And then once I got out of high school, I was actually more like passionate about music. So I had done like the jazz band and stuff, and like music really got me. It was like it really got me. So I was projecting to go to college basically for music. And I went to a 2 year community college thinking I was gonna do music. I did like theory and all that stuff. But then when I transferred to the university, I went to the University of Washington for my basically 4 year degree. I tried to do music there and it just wasn't working out. And so the way the music program and the art school were set up at the University of Washington, they're in this area called the quad, and the doors of the buildings faced each other.
Hmm.
So basically, one day, like after almost, I think at the end of the first quarter of school, I just went out the music building doors and went in the art building doors and said,
I'm here now.
yeah, what's going on? Help me out. And it was just like it was. I remember the experience of like this was what it was meant to be. It was like it was so much easier to just get into the rhythm of everything and figure things out, and a lot of stuff manifested because of it. And while I was there, I decided to major in fiber arts was my kind of major there. And that was cool. And the reason I picked that is because one, I had this thought that I would get into fashion design eventually. That never happened. But then the other was I thought I had a handle on like kind of painting two-dimensional kind of ideas and sculptural ideas, and they were like they look like the pillars of most art programs. And I was like, I want to try something different. I was like in the mood for something kind of different, and I enjoyed it, so I did that. And so, but then when I graduated, then I was deep into music. So I was music all the way through after I graduated undergrad till just about 4 years ago.
What'd you play?
Heavy. I played saxophone is what I kind of started with. But then once I got into the college era, it was like I played keyboard, some saxophone, I rap, I like started to play my own songs of writing on guitar. I played little harmonica stuff. So it's kind of like do a lot of stuff. And the style I kind of the last band I was in, I call it kind of like folk meets hip hop. It's kind of like the vibe of it. It was like a two-piece, me and a drummer. It's pretty fun. Are we still recording?
Yeah. There's just a weird noise coming from somewhere that I don't recognize. Like, I think it's coming from my board. If this thing, like, you know, burst into flame, whatever. We'll see what happens, I
All
guess.
right, all right, all right.
But so music, and then back into arts as an
Yeah.
adult post college.
Yes. So then I went to graduate. So I moved to. I mean, you're getting like the quick version. There's like so much that
Right.
is I'm leaving out of all this, but basically I ended up in San Diego in 2017. I have kids. My ex-wife wanted to move to San Diego, and I wanted to be close to my kids and all that. So we ended up there. That's a longer story. You can ask me about it if you want, but the short story version is I was in San Diego. I was driving Lyft and Uber for the first like while I was there, like hardcore, and that's a whole nother thing we
I'm
can.
sure you got all kinds of stories.
Oh, it's yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I did it hard. I was like intense about it. I was like drove a lot. I like burned myself out on it and all that stuff. But while I was in that journey of that, I actually had a passenger in my car that was talking about graduate school, and it kind of like reminded me that that's something that I've been thinking about. And one of the rules I had about going to graduate school is I had to be in a different city than I was where I went to undergrad. And it was kind of like it kind of manifested for me because I was like, oh, now I'm in San Diego. Let me like look at this graduate school thing again. And so, and I've always wanted to go to graduate school for visual art. And so I was like, well, let me look at that and see if it's a thing. And I applied to San Diego State University, got in, and just applied myself while I was there. It was a 3-year program. And while I was there, it kind of morphed, or I don't know, my focus became two-dimensional art in the form of drawing a lot. And we'll get deeper into this, but I was under the graphic design program, so I learned a lot about graphic design while I was there. And so that's why I'm teaching. That's why I can teach graphic design. As I mentioned earlier, I was teaching last year at Northwest Missouri State University. And but now, so bringing us up to what I'm doing right now is this cross section of drawing, but I draw with ink and a brush and a rag. So it kind of, when you look at it, when you look at the process, it can kind of look like charcoal at times. It can also kind of look like painting. But because of the immediacy and because of the way I do it, I definitely think it's drawing more than anything else. But it shares, obviously shares some ideas with other forms as well. But then there's the internet aspect, the live stream. Like I live stream everything I make these days right now. So it's like there's an important aspect of it is that kind of access to technology, access to video, access to contemporary kind of thoughts and ideas around what it means to make art and those kind of ideas. But then also the activism part of it, like the vast majority of my work, I like to say I make work that amplifies important messages. So it's like what can I latch onto that's a message that I can believe in and get behind and try to amplify. And so there's this activism. So it's like mark making internet and activism. There's like a cross section there, and I'm trying to be community based. I'm trying to have conversation with my work. That's why the live streaming is important, because it allows me as the artist to be able to be in the conversation. There's a lot of artists that want their work, they say they make work to inspire conversation, but oftentimes they make the work, they put it somewhere, and they're not necessarily a part of the conversation. They're just hoping the conversation will be created from their work.
Yeah.
But while I'm doing my work, I'm trying to be in the conversation. I'm trying to, like, my work, the work that I'm making, like the actual work is actually the conversation.
Because you
Yeah.
have the chat pulled up next to, with the live stream
Yeah.
while you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
And when I was there bugging you the other day, there were people chatting on the chat room, and I was chatting with you in person, and they could hear what we were talking about in the whole 9 yards.
So it's like the in-person performance and online performance, and and then with the online portion too, it's like, because it's like YouTube stores it, right? It doesn't stop at the end of the drawing. Like, somebody could find it today and comment, and then it keeps and I'm directly connected. It's like on my phone.
You'll get the buzz and have
so
the
I'm
notification.
always potentially a part of the potential conversation that could be inspired by my work. I mean, it varies depending, some things like this. Honestly, this performance was pretty low in terms of the engagement. There's been other times where it's a lot higher and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, what do you have any highlights from this particular exhibition?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah. Hey, Katie. I gotta pet the cat first.
Yeah, that's Asher.
Asher?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Asher. So the highlight at this moment, well, there's a couple. There's tiers of highlights, but definitely the top tier of the highlight. So the exhibition was about Justin Jones and Justin Pearson as the kind of the focus, as the inspiration for the conversation. It's like what happened to them with getting voted out and then reinstated, and then the protests and gun reform, like all that stuff is like the and they're like the access point of all of it in a way. Justin Jones actually came down a couple times, and we talked. He came down the third day I was doing it, and we talked a little bit. His photographer came down with them, or somebody that follows him around sometimes, took some photos. So that was really cool to kind of get that as part of it. But then he came back on the 12th day, and we ended up doing what the point of the whole exhibition is for me, which is having discourse. It's like, and so I got to learn firsthand from Justin Jones, like what it was like, during the moment where they got expelled, all those kind of things, but also just how he like personally has like this the emotional and psychological kind of experience it was and has been for him being a leader in the in society, being like standing for what he stands for and doing so. It really like it started to inform a lot of my own thought process around how I'm doing this work and those ideas. But it was just, I'm being a little bit, I don't want to talk specifically about what we talked about, because I think it's like sensitive in some ways, but
I mean, that you don't have to spill the beans. That can stay private. That's fine.
Yes, but it was very profound for me to have that ability to connect that way with him. And it was like, so that was definitely the highlight, right? That was definitely like the best. Like, he came down, he has like a cohort of supporters that came down with them. They call themselves like the Justin grandmas or something like that. They're like a few elders that came down with them, that were really excited about the exhibition. One of them even jumped on the live stream with me a couple times. And they bought me lunch, which was awesome. So just getting some lunch, 51st Street Deli. If you're ever in Nashville, go check it out. They're really good.
Oh, yeah.
I've had I think they call it, the Legend, I think is one of them. It's like a roast. It's like a barbecue roast beef thing. And then I think the one they got me was like a turkey club or something. But the best part about it were like, there was like pickled onions on it or something.
Oh.
They were so good.
Pickled onions, yes.
It was so good. I was like, why are they? Yes, like I was like, it was so good. So that day was just amazing. That was on Friday of last week. So I don't know the dates. I don't know for you listening, what time wise that'll be for you, but could be weeks away.
Well, I'll put this out
Okay.
pretty quick
Okay,
because
cool.
there's some timely relevance on this one.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah, this one will
appreciate
come
that. I
out quick.
appreciate that.
Um,
Yeah, so and then just a couple other highlights was, that the show, it's always great for me when external force like you, obviously this is definitely a highlight because this came out of, one of my goals as a just a creative person is to do this on the regular.
mhm.
Like I want to be on everybody's podcast. Like I want to just, I'm hoping that
It's a
like
ton of fun. I enjoy it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
want to keep doing it. And so the fact that you invited me to do, like, it just kind of, I was like, before I even looked, I think I mentioned this while you were there. Before I even looked at anything, you said like, you want to be on my podcast? So I was like, yes. And I was like, oh, maybe I should like vet this a little bit. But, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. So
Well, the
that,
enthusiasm is always appreciated.
yeah. So that's, and then just having others like the Tennessee Holler posted about
Mhm.
it. This blog called was A Girl Has No President or something like that, posted about the show. There was one other, this TikToker I follow that I'm into. He's called the Art Ed Art Ed Guru. He's like, he kind of reviews and kind of talks about art as in an educational point, and he kind of shared about the show. So it was really great to have people share about the show, which is like always what you want. I mean, what I want. It's just like I don't want to. I'm not trying to do this just for myself. I want
Right.
to share. The only I'm gonna be honest. The only disappointing part of that is that like looking at the posts, they're like the lowest engaged posts on all the different platforms. I'm like, God darn it! It's like it's like, but whatever. At least maybe a couple of people, because it's like you only need that one person. That one person could. I mean, there could be somebody listening to this right now.
Right.
It could be that one person that was like, let's look into this deeper and then offer another opportunity or do whatever it might be. So just every little thing helps, and who knows what it'll manifest to be
Um,
that.
I
Yeah.
keep a pretty close eye on the Tennessee Holler Instagram page, so I'm pretty sure that's where I seen your work.
Okay.
And then I followed the breadcrumbs and sent you a message, and you responded kindly to a stranger on the internet. So that was really cool. I always make it a point to thank the people that I don't know, and then end up sticking in that chair right there
Yeah.
to say, "Hey, thank you for kindly responding to a stranger on the internet," because I really appreciate it, and I wouldn't be able to
Oh,
do
hey.
this without people kindly responding to a stranger on the internet.
Well, you did it the right way, and I don't get a lot of like interaction, so it's like, hey, it worked out.
Well, I mean, I try to put a nice uh, couple paragraphs forward to let people know I'm not just
Yeah, yeah.
out here goofing off.
Well, the fact that you came down too and
I,
checked it out,
I was
like
going to be in town,
that
so I
was
wanted to stop
perfect.
by.
It all
Uh,
worked out.
yeah,
It's like,
I was super stoked to see everything in person. And honestly, at this point, I've had let's see, this is going to be episode like 79, so I just physically cannot go to all the shows of all
yeah,
the people
yeah,
who
yeah,
I've had on the other side of the microphone. So anytime I can go catch something, I really try to do it. So I knew you were going to be there. I knew you were going to do the thing. So I was like, absolutely going to have to stop by because it was like 45 minutes from the Ren Fair. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, yeah, I got to go.
Cool, cool.
So I appreciate you doing your thing in the open, in the gallery, letting everybody see in person and on the internet. I think that's awesome. So just the whole way you present the exhibition. And I would have felt really dumb if I didn't drive the 45
Yeah.
minutes while I was 3 hours away from home if I didn't stop by. So I had to stop by.
How was it? You said, I think you said it was easy to get it. You were able to drive right in, and they just let
Well,
you
they
in.
had, I thought I needed to, the way it looked on Google Maps, I needed to take a right at the fork where it goes around the building. But no, I just came up the hill instead of down the hill. And yeah, I just walked right in because you
Oh,
had the front door
yeah,
open.
yeah,
But yeah, I just walked right in after I parked, and there you were on your stool at your easel with the camera and a rag wrapped around your finger
yeah,
with the India ink.
yeah,
And then you got India ink all over my hand when we shook hands.
yeah. I think I still have some
Yeah, you
left.
got some under your fingernails.
Yeah, it takes a. I mean, I don't have the proper cleaning supplies right now, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I
uh,
like it. It's like a badge of like,
half the clothes I have paint on them,
yeah,
and the paint I use most of the time is really brightly colored. So it's like I'll wear this really nice pair of like canvas colored cargo shorts or whatever, and there's like spots of fluorescent blue and green and orange on it. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
whatever. So how did you settle on the mix of mediums you're using for this body
Yeah.
of work?
Well, it's what I've been kind of using for a while because I'll give you the long story. I in graduate school when I mentioned I was doing music hardcore for a long time, and so when I got back to graduate school, I I'd always was so I have this kind of saying where I think you have to be actively doing something if you want to define yourself as that thing. And even though I wasn't as hardcore about visual art, I still valued the definition of calling myself a visual artist. So I would always make sure I was doing something visual art oriented all the while I was doing my music, which was I made these little things called tunnel books, which are little like diorama things. So I wasn't like drawing much. I wasn't painting anything. I wasn't doing much of that type of stuff. It was mainly like basically little sculptural pieces. And then so when I got to graduate school, I was like, okay, I need to get back into this kind of world a little bit deeper and more. And how can I do that? And my access point for that was to draw again. And I'd been kind of like basically praised for my drawing ability when I was in undergrad and those kind of ideas. So I was like, this is my access point. Let me do this. So I set up a challenge to draw every day for like as long as I could. It I didn't quite do it, but I did it enough that there were sections of it. So when it took me like 3 months to get started, but then I drew for like 3 months, 4 months solid every day, and then it kind of started. I'd miss a day here and there, kind of. So by the second year, I kind of more like kind of left that thing, but it got me going. It got the drawing
Yeah.
going, and in that process, I started with Micron pen and just a sketchbook, and I increased my size of the sketchbook, and then I moved from Micron to brush, ink and brush, and it was just black ink, and that's it. So then I kind of was messing with that, and then I moved from that to bigger pieces of paper, like really large pieces of paper with the black ink, and doing that. And then one of my professors said, I think you need to introduce like white or something so that because allowing my ink to drip a lot. I was really messy, kind of really. I have this other saying like embrace the mistake. So I kind of like I start. I don't know I try to make mistakes on purpose in a way and see how I could deal with them and what happens. But sometimes it might go too far, and it's like then you're like, what do you do then?
Yeah.
It's like, and so they were one of my professors suggested, why don't you introduce white ink and then so you can use it as a corrective kind of technique. So it kind of evolved into that. And so that's kind of where I kind of, I don't know, just in terms of the ink, that was kind of the journey with the ink. But then it was like the nuances inside of there were um, understanding that as a traveling, so what I'm trying to do now with my career is be like a traveling, essentially educator in a way, like go do visiting faculty for a year at different universities or whatever. I just did a year, like I said, at Northwest Missouri. So, and I'm not going to be there next year. So I'm looking for a gig for the next year. And so, but in that process, you don't really have the opportunity to set up a full studio, and you kind of have to think about the kind of art you want to make. And working on paper and using ink is really easy and really you can fit it anywhere. It doesn't take a lot to do. So I was like, okay, let me just keep doing this process that I developed through graduate school now and just keep going with it. And so that's kind of part of it as well as it's like the necessity of the environment,
Yeah.
it kind of necessitated, thinking about that. So another nuance is like you mentioned the rag, my hand wrapped with a rag so I did these live streams. I've done these kind of part of my work is the sort of endurance aspect of things, like the 12 days I just did, or yeah, 13 days I just did. But I've done other like things in the past where I did multiple days in a row or hours in a row, like 24 hours of live streaming and drawing. And like I did this one project where I did 24 drawings in 24 hours, and they were fairly large drawings. They were like basically like 6 feet by 4 feet. They were like large drawings, and
You're a
I did
madman.
one and out and it was cool, but it was insane. By the last like five of them, I was like,
Delirious.
yeah, it was like crazy. But what I did, but on like the third drawing, so that's where I started to use the rag in the sort of the way that I'm doing it now, because I would always use the rag to kind of smear things and stuff, but I would always kind of rely on the brush for most of it. But then on like the third drawing, I recognized, I'm able to accomplish like getting this in this getting this drawing formulated with the rag, and I don't need to go back to the brush.
Well, when I saw you working in the gallery, I think I only saw you use a brush with the white
Yeah.
because
Well, so
you were using the rag in your fingers for literally everything else.
yeah, and so that's actually what kind of, so these are the little evolutions that happen in every time I do one of these projects. I'm pretty prolific, so I don't try to like force myself to move to a different kind of concept too quickly, because I just keep working and something manifests out of it. So that's basically what manifested. I've noticed I've started to do that more and more when I do these live streams just in my studio where I do drawings, and I've been noticing like I really don't need to go back to the black brush, but I do anyway. But this time I didn't. I left the black brush pretty. I basically after I yeah, there's this. I didn't need to go back to the small black brush. I still use the wide black brush at times, like the bigger one, but I didn't really go back. And I just noticed that evolution. And one of the other evolutions that happened this time as well, like, so if you work with like basically watercolors, is what I'm doing. It's just black watercolor in a way, in the ink. You can use like the wet first and then put the ink on it, and then the ink kind of like the capillary action or whatever
Yeah,
makes the water or the ink form in the water. So I've never really done that, but I did that a few times toward the end of this experience. And so I could see myself moving. So my drawings moving forward might start looking different because of, accessing that technique more
so
often.
it might look like you have more like washes
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
pieces versus strokes
Yeah.
and
And you'll
bold.
see it like anybody that does look at this, I think, like, so there was 141 drawings total. I don't remember, like, the around the 30th from the end, I did that for the first time, and then I did it a couple more times. And the very last one of Justin Pearson, I did his hair that way, and I'm like, I just know already that this is gonna be
That's gonna
something.
work in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can feel that.
I
Yeah,
really enjoy how raw this series looks because it's really blatant. Like there's no I know there's finesse to it, but the
yeah,
finesse that you see is just really exaggerative and like it just looks raw. I don't know
yeah,
what other adjective to put on it because I just feel like I see the intention and motion of every stroke you put
yeah,
on these pieces of paper. And I love that. Like
yeah,
that kind of just visceral looking effect that gets is something that I really enjoy. It's kind of like why I used a really ugly brush on
yeah,
this one to sort of obfuscate,
yeah.
but also seem intentional. Like that looks like just a random pattern of letters, but all of that right there, as I point to a painting on my wall, everybody, is words that describe. That's a list of crises in the world right now, like all the red letters on the background of
Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah,
So, like, if you look into that, you'll see global warming, housing crisis, corporate greed, blah 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 blah. Like, just the list is long, and there's a lot of them on there. But I like damaged a brush,
yeah.
cut it weird ways and frayed it and did
Okay,
all the
okay,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that was intentional because I wanted it to look in a way that you would only see the things if you were like actively paying attention to them. Because obviously they're letter forms, but they're so scattered. Like, you're only seeing the words in the list if you're actively looking and trying to, see what is there.
yeah.
And I feel like you've done some of that in a way, and it makes an aesthetic that I find very pleasing to bring this back around.
Yeah, yeah, I think. Well, I just to bounce off that a little bit. I mean, for me, I'm not interested at all in like realism, like photorealism, like that kind of like super precise kind of idea. Least I don't know. That's a whole nother thing. But
But I see that the implication of the likeness is there and it
mhm,
is very clear.
mhm,
And if you look at the series as a whole, like from number one to the finish, you can tell that there's an evolution of process,
yeah,
but you still have the consistency of your figure.
yeah. Well, representation, I'm okay with. I like. I so to answer to talk directly to that is the access point of. I like the idea that the average viewer will be able to access it fairly quickly. It's not so metaphor. It's not so esoteric. It's not so lost in that somebody can just the random person walking past knows it's a human face. Maybe they know who Justin Jones and Justin Pearson are, so they can put that together. I do writing on it, like you're drawing up
Hmm.
there. I do writing as well, so they could see the words and they could start to put things together. So there's that element to it I like. But then as far as mark making goes, like if you there is still an abstractness to once I've kind of given you the general idea of the face. I'm not trying to like make the lighting perfectly shaded around. I just like block out the lighting and the other thing I try to do as well using the white and black ink is like I try to stay away from gray. So it's like I always let each color dry before I apply another mark. So I try to avoid. There is some places where it gets gray and I smear it and smudge it together, but rather than mixing the gray, like the black and white together wet, it's more about layering the two colors and creating the tones that way. And I really like what happens there because it gives it kind of an edgy kind of vibe at times. I like using. I have a 1 inch wash or whatever kind of brush you want to call it, but a 1 inch that I really like having showing that tool in a way in the brush marks, even if it's an area that maybe you would want to move to a different size brush. I still try to use the big brush to like create that. So it kind of creates, again, going back to that embrace the mistake idea. So it kind of creates anomalies. It kind of creates things that I don't have full control over while I'm making it. But I'm trying to ride that balance of like, I still want it to be representational. I still want you to understand it's a human face, but I also just want to be expressive with it, you know.
Well, there's some inherent chaos when you're not using the tools the way they're necessarily
Yeah.
supposed to be used or how you think you're going to use them in the moment when you lay the brush down.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some randomness involved there that you can embrace or you can kind of work around. But like I think leaning into it is always the play. And
Yeah.
in my work in my work and my creative output, I'm never trying to shy away from the whoops.
Yeah.
Like, oh damn. Like there's been very few times after I've sort of felt this way that I've just been like, well, I have to start over now,
Yeah.
you know.
The one thing about these spaces, maybe I'll get to this eventually, where when I do a performance in like a gallery or a public space, it'll be more conducive to being more messy or more whoopsie in a way because I have to kind of contain myself a little because I don't want to mess up the space, you
Yeah, you
know?
did have a really good sized drop cloth in your
Yeah.
area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I wasn't even being I was being pretty controlled, you
Yeah.
know, and that was just in case things spilled, but I wasn't doing a lot of things because I like to like throw ink at the page just to kind of create randomness and see what happens. But I didn't do a lot of that this time because I didn't want to throw ink against the wall in a
And
sense.
all the walls were white.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a very gallery like gallery,
Yeah.
and you were being a very painterly painter and
Yeah.
trying to be aware of your mess.
Yeah. But hopefully one day I can set up an environment that I can be a little more random. Maybe the space is against the wall that I'm drawing and like it's sealed off in a way and I can just throw toward it so I don't have to worry about, you know,
Maybe that's the next one.
yeah.
You find a gallery with a gallery director that's like, hell yeah, go.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I hope so.
there's a lot. Well, the next I mean, I'm hoping I definitely hope I can do it next time and I definitely hope the next time it's not well anyways it is what it is. I'm not worried about too much, but it would be nice if there was a little bit of expectation of knowing what to expect in a way of okay, the purpose of this is the performance versus the final product.
Hmm.
So maybe an audience would also know that so they'd be there for the performance and then the gallery would know that and so the space would be more conducive for the performance or
Right.
something, whatever it might be. But
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to meet one in the middle on that,
yeah,
as far as from a space point of view.
but I'll take what I can get because even like just to tell you the behind the scenes of this experience as well. So I started classes whatever August or so last year, and it was probably August, September, maybe around September or so. I just had this idea. It's like I need to get an exhibition. I need to do something. Honestly, not a big fan of group shows and things like that. I'm not a big fan of the one piece being sent off. I'm like, if I'm going to do the work, so this kind of comes from my days of a musician. Like, I've never been a big fan of open mics because for me, it's pretty much the same amount of work to go to an open mic as it is to do an actual set. It's just like the distance between that. It's just because I don't know. It takes the kind of musician I am. I have to really I can't just show up and just be like whimsical. I have to really be aware of what I'm doing because
Yeah.
I want to put my best foot forward and do that. So it's kind of maybe it spilled over into this where it's just like I just rather focus on getting solo exhibitions than doing anything else. So okay, so then I was like, let me figure this out, and then so I've been learning about this process of getting exhibitions in the art world. It's like it's almost like a 2 year lead time, and I didn't realize that. It's like I was like not even a year away from wanting to do this, and I was thinking, oh, like they have to have something. And I was just as I was emailed like every art. I looked online for every single art space I could find that was in Tennessee because I wanted this to be in Tennessee because of the nature of the
Right.
subject matter. And the ones that did respond were like, "Oh, we're already booked," basically. And I was like, "Ah," but then luckily because Tennessee State U, this art school, it's basically the summer, so it's kind of basically closed in a lot of ways. So they're like, "Well, it's the summer, so we have this space available." So it's like I was like, "Great, that's all I need is the space,"
Yeah,
because
just
I
need
was
the
willing to
space.
do it. Like I didn't even care because like luckily the space pretty much worked out perfect for the nature of the project because of the amount of drawings and they all could
Mhm.
be up and it fit really nicely in the space I think. And but I was willing to like even if the space was a corner of a room, I would have just stacked the drawings. You know, I didn't care what the space was. I just wanted a space and then do it. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of like how I got it. And they luckily I was able to get it, and I've been looking forward to it all year.
Yeah.
It was like my lifeblood for like the year.
The big thing you're looking forward to.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
awesome. I'm glad they were able to afford you the space.
Yeah,
I know, man, I've curated a few shows and done some group exhibitions and stuff. So, like, having that goal and like date on the
yeah,
calendar to look forward to is always like it's exciting and terrifying at the
yeah.
same time.
It's an odd thing. Like thinking about it. I mean, there's definitely similarities from my music career and the art career with that kind of putting dates on the calendar in the future. It kind of makes life feel like it goes too fast almost because you're always looking ahead. It's like why not? It's just like I just want to be here in the moment, you know, and stuff. But at the same time, thankfully for myself right now, because I've been doing so much, like traveling and new job and this exhibition and just like lots of newness, it's really slowed down life for
Yeah.
me and it's been a great experience. So I want to keep that going where it's like I'm always kind of doing new different things and keeping life slow, you know. Yeah.
I think that's very luxurious.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to take the time is luxurious no matter what the time is for, to being able to have it
Yeah.
and execute whatever the goal is. Like being bored is a luxury
Yeah.
because there's so much that society demands of us so often. Like having a slow day at work is a luxury. Like
Yeah.
I find these bits of luxury in life all
Oh,
over the place
okay. I see what you're
when
saying.
they're unexpected. Like for instance, being able to have this conversation is a luxury because we both intentionally set time aside to do this and we're putting the effort towards it. you know um, there are lots of places in life where one can find these things that they aren't like it isn't supposed to be there, or it
Yeah.
isn't expected to be there, or it's like a gift when you realize you're in the middle of it. And I think that level or degree of mindfulness with the lens on the clock and the calendar is something a lot of people could benefit from.
Yeah. I think of it there's another way that I think of what you're saying or express what you're saying as well for myself is I do stay pretty busy. And so when like even if it's like waiting at the I don't know, you're waiting for something your car getting fixed at the place, I'm like perfectly fine with that waiting time because I've every place else in my life, I'm just like go, 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 pack, pack, pack. That
Hmm.
whenever I get a chance to just stop, I'm like totally cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The 45 minutes it's going to take for whatever the hell this is, sweet.
And it's solely helpful to me because I'm also the type that kind of I've been getting better at this as I've gotten older, but I feel guilty if I'm not busy, you
Oh,
know?
that's society messing with your head right
Yeah.
there, because productivity, go, go, go
Yeah.
all the time. We're expected to constantly be something, somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
And I try to fight that sometimes by just intentionally taking like an evening to just sit at home and do jack shit.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you have to counteract all the perceived need of productivity with a little bit of just nothingness.
So when I do have those moments where I'm kind of forced to do nothing, it kind of alleviates that anxiety because I'm like, oh, I'm just forced to be here. It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing else I can do, so I'm just gonna,
I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing right
yeah,
now, which
yeah,
is damn near nothing,
yeah.
and this is fine.
But I've also gotten better at, like, I basically take every Sunday off as my rest day. I have it on the calendar. I'm like, because I've discovered, especially, I don't know, age is probably a part of it. I've just discovered that if I don't have one, like, basically full day of doing kind of nothing, then it catches up to me. And the next week, I'm just like, I'm just out of it. I
Yeah, you
can't.
get in the middle of next week and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like one of the ways I do that in my life is like I turn on funk music and I'll cook breakfast. Like Monday morning, yesterday, my son, my partner, we're just chilling at the house. Ain't got nothing to do. It's Memorial Day, like not shit to do, no
Yeah.
plans, no nothing. It's breakfast time. Breakfast time is like a really fun way for me to start the day and like be intentional with a set of actions right off the top.
Yeah.
Like get out of bed, shower, brush my teeth, start cooking breakfast.
Yeah.
I'll turn on some like James Brown or Ray Charles or Sly and the Family Stone, any of those things, and just be like, all right, let's waffles, eggs,
Yeah.
bacon, sausage, gravy, whatever, the whole nine yards.
Well, you're hitting on two things that are actually pretty important to me. So through the experience of this exhibition, so part of it, so I run a pretty high level of anxiety in general. With these kind of exhibitions, it bumps up a notch because I'm so worried about not being able to finish and what's happening, and like driving to work, and then like, is my car gonna break down on the way in? Like I had to, where I'm staying is about 40 minutes to an hour in traffic to the exhibition
Yeah,
space.
good old Nashville traffic.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not that bad. We could talk about driving. So
There are worse places.
yeah, I'm gonna make a video on my YouTube of, when I get back and from all this, kind of talking about my experience with Nashville drivers, which is not terrible. Nashville drivers are, and Tennessee drivers are fine, but I've noticed here. I'll just give you a preview. I
Right.
noticed that there's a lot of left right swaying in this area, which I didn't at first. I was like, think that's happening, and I was like, let me just wait. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of lane drifting,
Mhm.
and then there's a lot of cars without front bumpers on them. That's like, you don't see that other places as much. That, and what was the other thing? There's probably something else, but those are two right off the top of my head.
Well, I'm excited for this media whenever you
Yeah,
put it out there.
but when I was driving in though, putting on some music can totally change my mood and get me in the better space. Like, I like funk too. I've been really into, like, there's these brass band type bands that, I can't know how to pronounce it, but it's like Mutai or Muti. There's one I really like. Too Many Zoos was one
Too
out.
many
Yeah.
zoos. Saxophone stuff.
Yeah. They were one that came. There's a song called Warrior that really got me. And then just other things. I like kind of electronic stuff as well.
Oh, future funk and like robo funk. I'm all in those
Yeah.
genres too. Like if there's a synthesizer in my funk music, oh no.
Yeah. So that was important. So that connects to what you're saying. And then the breakfast part of it, one of the things that I've been doing is going to breakfast when I can. And I'd much rather go to a breakfast than a dinner.
Mhm.
Like, that's just my jam. Like, or make it. I like to make breakfast as well. But like, I like to experience, like, trying to experience Nashville or Tennessee as much as I can. And the way that I do it is, I'm not a typical tourist, but I get up and go find a cool breakfast spot. So I've been able to find a couple. There's a place, I think it's called the Nashville Jam something company or something, I went to yesterday. They were decent. They don't have real maple syrup, which is a problem, and they only have Lipton tea. I'm a tea drinker,
Mm.
just black tea, but I don't like Lipton. So that was, but otherwise it was good. The place I went before that, let me see if I can remember. Because that was the best. Oh, Blue Sky. That was the best breakfast spot I've been to in Nashville so far. It's either called Blue Sky or Sky Blue or something like that. So look it up. It's a small little corner breakfast place. Great ambiance is awesome. I always get basically pancakes and, like, eggs, whatever, sausage and hash browns. Like,
Yeah.
that's my thing I get these days, and just because I like pancakes a lot, but I also I don't know, whatever. That and then, but they were the best so far. So
Well, if you're ever looking for a good breakfast in Knoxville,
mhm.
Pete's Coffee Shop is like the solid
It's called
spot.
Pete's Coffee Shop
Pete's Coffee Shop,
because
yeah.
there's also Pete's Coffee. I don't know if there's is there the chain Pete's?
No, this is a family-owned thing.
Okay,
It's
because
been like bespoke since guy opened it way
yeah,
back
yeah.
when. Like
Le-
it's a like I me and my coworkers used to go get breakfast there after we would build hockey ice and get off at like 6 a.m. from building, running backwards with a hose all night,
okay,
making
okay.
sure the hockey ice was
What
getting thick.
what's your
Uh,
favorite dish at
I
Pete's?
love. I think their classic breakfast is like two pancakes and a side of bacon, something like that. It's I usually end up getting like either waffles or pancakes and
Okay,
like
yeah,
three slices of bacon and some hash browns.
okay, yeah, yeah,
So we have pretty similar
yeah,
breakfast ideas, but I've been in situations with my breakfast shenanigans where it's very social, and I've had a lot of people over for brunch, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I like
I do
cooking
that
for my
too.
friends. So like I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, and it's gotten to the point where
Yep.
the this thing is an event and it has a name. This is the James Brown Breakfast Dance Party Spectacular.
Okay. See, this is why. So we're getting to the root of how we connected. That the cosmic force. So I have a breakfast. I call it a breakfast cafe or a secret cafe. I call it Zim's Flying Omelets.
Mm,
So it's like
mm.
same idea. I make omelets for people. They come over. We just do the thing. And it's been going on for years, years and years. So yeah, totally.
A buddy of mine and some of his friends, they will do like Sunday brunch DJ live streams.
Yeah.
And when they're really rocking it, they'll have an omelet cam so you can watch them make the omelets for themselves. So there'll be
Okay.
three people and one of them DJs, and then they'll go cook and they'll rotate. And like
Yeah.
one will cook and one
That's
will DJ, or
awesome.
two will DJ and one will cook. But it's so good, man. I
I,
love the omelet cam.
I've always wanted. So in another life, I had this idea of starting like a cafe, and I'm called the Breakbeat Cafe.
Mm,
So
sold.
it's like you're breaking the eggs, you're beating the eggs, whatever. But it's also there's open decks,
Oh my
so people could come and DJ and
God.
play their own records and their whatever they might have. I'll probably have like regular, definitely got to have regular,
You got to spend some vinyl.
vinyl, but then have the more modern stuff too,
Well,
so people
I'm
can.
sold. Just go ahead.
Yeah,
Like,
and then I was just visualizing it the other day because it gave me an inspiration for. It was while I was at my exhibition doing it because I like to do really large drawings as well. I use rolls of paper, like Strathmore. You can buy rolls like 10-yard rolls of paper, and I do that a lot. And so I'll do like eight as tall as the ceilings are, whatever space I am. I'll just put a piece of paper up and do these large drawings. And so I want to do that again. I was thinking about like in this omelet or this cafe, there'd be these really long portraits, drawings of like I don't know, old hip hop heads or DJs or whoever it might be. So like creates a really cool, hopefully ambiance. So one of the biggest problems with a space, a dining experience is if the ambiance is off, it just ruins, for me, it ruins the experience. Like if it just doesn't feel like I went to, okay, so there's a kind of a more touristy pancake place in kind of Nashville area. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just like cafeteria feeling.
mm,
And I was just like, this is,
volume, like made
yeah, you got to have some you got to do something to, I don't know, make it.
didn't feel very personal.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
not right. It's not right.
Well, in contrast, Pete's has a lot of like pictures up on the wall of local celebrities and actual
Okay.
like actors and stuff. People that came through, like Harrison Ford stopped in a couple years
Okay,
ago.
cool,
So
cool.
they've got that kind of thing, but it's all super wholesome, local, like family stuff, and championship high school sports football teams and all that jazz.
Okay,
So it's
nice.
it's really homey,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I dig it. It's also pretty small. It might seat like 40
Oh,
people.
that's good.
And it's got a full bar and tables, on the street front next to the windows and stuff. So you might like
I probably
it.
would. I probably
Yeah,
would.
you might. That might
So
be the
I'll have to
spot for you.
remember. I probably won't be able to hit it this time, but
Well, I'm
next time.
when you mosey back through.
I mean, there may be. I mean, who knows? I like so thinking about. So as at this point, I was thinking about this conversation. You're not asking this question, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
Run it.
Um, I'm living in a space in my life right now where I don't have any idea what the future holds. Like, I don't have a job lined up for next school year. I'm just like allowing the universe just to provide in a way as much as I can. I mean, there's elements where I do couch or kind of like guide it myself because I'm not totally like whimsical, but I'm also not like fretting over the fact that I don't have anything lined up. And
Yeah.
so it's like there are things possibly at play that maybe I would be around this area for longer, or whatever. And who knows what might happen. So I'm just like, it's interesting. It's interesting what might manifest, and I have no idea what
Well,
it is.
there's something that happens when you like loosen your grip on
Yeah.
things. They seem to wiggle around more in a way that you might find pleasing or
Yeah.
work out in your favor. Like holding on to ideas really tightly does not always
Yeah.
grant the results that you want.
What I've been able to do for myself, which feels pretty awesome, is whenever, I definitely have hopes that something might work out. Like, I hope that I'll get a job. I hope, like, I've applied to 30 positions and I'm like, oh, it'd really cool if I got that one. And then I get the letter like, oh, we picked somebody else or whatever. It's like, bummer. But instead of going, God, instead of dwelling on the fact that I didn't get, I am allowing myself and been able to tap into this idea of, it means something better is waiting for me.
Yeah.
It's just like something better is just, I just have to be patient for it to manifest.
It frees you from those
Yeah.
circumstances that something else can take that void,
Which
fill
is
that
not
void.
easy.
No, because like it's a weird thing to let go or like disband whatever assumptions, hopes you had, but that's also a really healthy practice
Yeah.
with expectations and setting and letting them go. And I'm pretty sure we had a short chat about how expectations be damned
Yeah.
sometimes in the gallery the other day. And you know, I, the place where I'm at now, employment wise, I didn't really seek it. I just got a message one day on the internet, and that's my cat.
Okay.
Got a message on the internet, and they're like, "Hey, give us a call," blah blah blah. And I was
That's
like,
cool.
"Well, sure, give the situation my due diligence and see what
Yeah.
happens." And now I'm doing what I'm doing. So
The
it.
best feeling, I don't know, for me, the best, I mean, hands down, the best feeling is being like headhunted, is
Oh
being
yeah,
like,
we want you.
yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
feels
like
great.
if I could get to that position with anything I'm doing, but especially the teaching thing, like if I would love to be a visiting professor for a while, a good 4, 5, 6 years possibly. And if people knew like, oh, Zim's not gonna have a job next year, let's have him work
Yeah,
for us
let's
next.
get him over here
Yeah,
now.
that's it's like
Well,
that would be sick.
when I listened to your episode about your teaching
Yeah. Oh yeah,
uh,
we were gonna talk about that.
philosophy, I really resonated with that because I don't know if I told you when we met, but my mom's career educator.
Yeah.
I have loads of educators in my family tree and the generations above me. Like my grandfather was my high school principal. I had my mom as a teacher, I had my great aunt as a teacher, had one of my grandmas as a teacher. Like small town shit, but like
Yeah, yeah.
lots of
No, it's yeah.
educators, and it's been really neat and another one of those luxuries to see how each of them conduct themselves and a class. Like
Mhm.
my grandfather was a principal, so he conducted everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he was basically the conductor of the whole school as if it were an orchestra. He always had that really methodical sense of how all the pieces played together to create the larger whole. And that's one of the things I've always thought he as a person has been brilliant with. But, seeing how everybody does it different and then listening to you put it in words and how you tried to build community in your classroom and relationships with your students and all that stuff, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Something overwhelmingly positive that made me have hope that classrooms could still be fun, cool places where people were excited to be. And I've been in a lot of classrooms that just weren't that. So
Yeah.
knowing you have ideas and practices to make classrooms behave that way
Mhm.
made me really happy being someone who is intimately familiar with classrooms and the people that operate them.
Yeah.
And so I was so stoked to hear that. Like
Yeah.
I had my hands on a bullshit project at work and you were in my ears talking about that. So I was just like, hell
That's good.
yeah,
What
really digging that.
the two things I think at this point, I'm still learning, I'm still growing as an educator, and I'm being aggressive about trying to be like I don't do things halfway, half ass or whatever. I'm like when I commit to something, I'm in it. I'm there to do it. Oh hi. Another kitty.
That's Neo.
Wow, beautiful cat.
Yeah, be careful. She's got an ego. She'll hear you say that. She'll prance around all week.
Okay. Um, one of the so what's been working for me, and it really, it's like you think it. I don't know. In ways, it feels like it's something that needs to be like nurtured all semester or whatever, which it is. But setting it up from the beginning, the first day of classes, going, this is the expectation. This is the environment that we're going to create. Man, goes so like is so important to the whole thing. And what I do is, instead of doing what a lot of university level classes do, is they just jump right into the lessons.
Hey, we're going to go over the syllabus today.
Yeah,
Like,
the first day of classes is all about just talking to each other, getting to know each other. So I did the silly little icebreaker kind of thing where we get in a line and we just kind of speed date. The whole class kind of speed dates and talks to the person across from them. It's like a 2-line thing, and we just kind of rotate. But basically, and then we go through. And if we have enough time, like with studio art classes, last semester was only like a little less than a 2-hour class, but last year, but my job before that, we had more like 3 hours for studio classes.
awesome.
So it gave more time. So what I would do after we did all our introductions is we would get in a big circle, and then we do this like spin the bottle. It's a weird. Anyways, we'd like spin the bottle, but it was basically like to just start it off to like basically the person across from you in the circle. This is the short version. I'm not going to go into the elaborate version. The short version is the person across from me. You introduce that person. So you've already gotten to know everybody, and then we just go around the entire circle like that. So it's like it's just breaking the ice, getting to know each other. There's people forget each other's names. It's like it creates levity at times. Funny things happen. Some people already know some people, so it kind of introduces a different element of things. And so I think it really helps create that foundation of community, and we're here together. And then it's just, for me, I really firmly believe like reminding the students the reason we're here is to be in community, and especially as an art class, it's like I try to I've learned this other thing that I'm trying to implement more. It's like there's a prescriptive way of teaching where it's like do this, do this, do this to fix what you're doing.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to recognize when I do that. There's times where that's important because you just maybe need to get to the point. But there are other times where it's like if I have the ability to allow the students to figure it out, go like, what do you think would help this piece?
That's one of those scenarios where you just create the vacuum and
Yeah.
see what populates the space.
And so if after we've broken the ice, after we've recognized we're community together, I hope it allows the students to talk more with each other, because that's way more valuable if the students are giving critique to each other and helping each other pull out whatever the art might be or whatever needs to be pulled out of it, versus me just going do this, do that, do this.
Well, that and
Yeah.
it also decentralizes
Yeah.
the chain or the hierarchy in the classroom, and it also breaks down walls between
Yeah.
students where you feel more comfortable going, "Hey, how did this treat you?" or "What idea did you have about that?" And I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers in a
Yeah.
classroom, that a lot of students aren't necessarily comfortable talking to other students about
Yeah.
the thing that they're all doing together.
And I try to like as much as I can. I know there's just an intrinsic I'm the leader of the classroom and I'm the authority figure, but I try to avoid putting myself just on a pedestal that way. Like if there's in the classroom I taught in last semester, there was a desk in the front of the classroom and I refused to sit at the desk. Like I just circled it. I always, I mean, there are times where I have to be at the podium or whatever to give a sort of lecture. I do a lot with a projector, there's a screen of some kind usually, and there's a lot going on the screen to explain something about the class or what's going on. So I need to be in a fixed location to do that. But I try to avoid just being like patronizing in a way. Like I've been in classrooms where people
Yeah,
that
keep going. I'm going to ask you about this. Keep going.
are teaching, that it seems you can tell they change, and they think they need to be like some authoritarian kind of position versus a human in a way or something. And I just refuse. I try to avoid that as much as possible, and get as much like we're in this, because I tell my students I'm here to learn just as much as you, but I'm just learning something slightly different. I'm learning how to teach you better. I'm learning how
Mhm.
what you need to learn this better. I am learning constantly. I don't know it all, and every anybody that's educated could probably tell you this. even every time you think you're gonna predict what a class is gonna be like, it's not that way because there's like 30 new personalities and every class is different,
Yep.
It's like so
Well, and I hear that's something I heard my mom talk about a
yeah,
lot because, in middle school we had the block schedule. So she got four classes full of like, 25 kids, and it's
yeah,
all, she taught sixth grade for most of the last 10 or so years of her career. So she always had like, you know, 13, 14-year-old kids,
yeah,
25 of them, just like heeing and hawing and, trying to figure out how the whole dynamic works. Four different groups,
yeah, yeah,
every day. So she'd come in and be like, "Man, first and second block, they're really getting it. Third and fourth block, what the hell?"
yeah,
Like after lunch, these kids wild,
yeah,
that kind of thing. But what about this? I want to pick your brain on is,
sure.
in your experience being educated, did you have um, instructors or teachers that were more like how you teach, or did you suffer through a lot of authoritarian, "I'm the teacher, you're the student" bullshit?
Honestly, I don't think I had many teachers teaching the way that I teach. I think that's part of why I teach the way I do is because I was like, there's a better way.
That's kinda what I thought you would say, because I don't think a lot of folks have had the experience that's more loose and communal the way you teach. I think a lot of people have the more authoritarian or more rigidly
Yeah.
structured experience.
And part of it too, so my kids went to Waldorf education. Are you familiar with that at all?
Mm-mm,
So
no.
there's a whole other philosophy. Rudolf Steiner is the kind of founder of it, but it's like it's more holistic, more communicative with everything, more talking out ideas. The different subjects intermingle with each other more, like what they're studying in math will relate to what they're studying in language arts because of stories that intermingle
Mhm,
between them. I don't know, I was never taught that way, but seeing it from my kids perspective and seeing what's going on, um there's something there for me, and I just picked up on that. I'm very like, definitely, I'm gonna toot my own horn here, which like I have this saying, I keep my radar up, and when like even with graphic design, it's like I've never been a graphic design professional, but I was in the environment of learning it while I was in grad school and then now teaching it. So it's like I just have my radar on listening and taking in information as much as I can to then give back to my students or whatever I need, however I need to use it. So, and that's maybe similar to like how the Waldorf stuff picked up because one of my students as a college was like, "Do you know about Waldorf?" Because, I did Waldorf. That the student was like, "I was raised in Waldorf education and you teach like a Waldorf teach." It's kind of like that. And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense to me."
yeah.
So there's something there. There's a connection there. Even though I've never studied Waldorf education, there's a connection there. But I'm trying to think to direct answer your question a little more directly. Um like how did I get to this point? I think, I'm dyslexic as well. So that's a thing. It's like I don't take learning for granted. Everybody that's in that classroom has a different experience on how they can learn. And if I am putting myself in a position of only one way of teaching it in a sense, or only one, not really listening to them, then that's not, it's like I need to do the best I can. It's impossible. I can't accommodate everybody, but I can at least try to navigate it a little bit,
Right.
and go like, what is it and so I just try to be super authentic. I just genuinely, especially at college level, I think it's easier probably than maybe at other levels because I don't know, maybe not, but I honestly, genuinely want to get to know each of my students like on a personal level, on an individual level, like really try to understand as best I can who they are and see how I can support them. And whether that is in the lesson plans or whether that just is in a conversation, or because honestly think that I offer way more to my community of students than what the title of the class is. Like I want to be a support to them no matter what it might be. So
Well, I mean, you were talking about using your office hours as interview time to just like have conversations with your students, not to
yeah,
like grill them or like,
yeah,
like you know, play the authoritarian
Yeah.
part, like, hey, you got to come to the office hours. But like, you open it up as an opportunity to get to know your students. And if they need help or want to pick your brain or something, obviously that's welcome. But like, hey, this is a time we can be two humans in a room and talk. And I
Yeah.
thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this thing that I do that I've been developing what to call it, but this last year I call it midterm meetings to give it a little bit more of an official
Oh, that sounds very academic.
academic title. Just in case, I used to just call them individual meetings, but now I call them midterm meetings. So like it kind of replaces a midterm exam. It's like the students are kind of required. They're all required to meet me at the midterm so we can talk about if it needs to be talked about this class specifically, because they're by that time I kind of know who they are a little bit. I know if they're slacking or
Hmm.
whatever, if they're whatever might be going on specifically to the class, but then also it just gives me more of an opportunity to get to know them. And if we don't need to talk about something specific to the class, we just open it up. I just ask them about how they're going with the rest of their classes, like just just general, like what we're doing right now.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
a mini podcast for 15 minutes or 20 minutes,
Well,
however
man, I
long.
think that's a wonderful thing
Yeah.
because I feel like sometimes the humanity gets lost in the structure of it. And
I'm,
I hate when that happens.
and I'm lucky. I don't know if I'm partly, I feel like there's a lot of blessing that I'm coming at this a little bit older. Um, I'm the type that, I've just, I feel like if you're going to be an educator, it's what you do. It's not your job. It's who you are, And so if I'm going to be in that space, and education, learning and that kind of stuff just happens, it doesn't happen on a schedule.
Mm-mm.
And so just knowing that I'm just going to be available as much as possible, and when I need to set up boundaries, I'll set up boundaries. But haven't, at this point, I'm just not at the space where it's like really rigid. Like if I a Friday at 4 o'clock, I'm not answering emails until Monday at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not that tight. I'm just like, it's all fluid. It's just like part of it's like it makes way more sense to me too, because I also equate it to my art practice. Like my art practice isn't what is traditional in the sense of producing objects. My art practice is 24/7, 365. Like I feel like this moment that we're having is part of the art. It's like the
Oh,
conversation,
definitely.
the discourse is like, for me, that's part of the art. And so it's like my inside my classroom is part of that. So, and just every moment I'm doing whatever I'm doing is part of the art. So it's like, and it's like, if that's the way I think about my art, it's like it's sort of to make sense to me to think about that with my practice as an educator. It's like it's all happening all the time,
Yeah. So I had a conversation. Maryville College is a liberal arts college in the neighboring town in Blount County, Maryville.
Yeah,
Um, and I had the luxury to sit down and have a conversation with one of their tenured professors. His name is Carl Gombert. He just retired, I think, last month. But he had a practice of studio time that was definitely not literally studio time. Like your studio can be a physical, literal space, but it's also the headspace of your creative practice. So
yeah,
you can take it with you anywhere. So, I'm not going to be upset if I'm not home with my art supplies because my studio space travels with me
hmm,
literally anywhere I go. And that's a notion that I've had for a long time, but hearing some those words come out of somebody else's mouth like stamped that idea like, yes, exactly. This is the thing.
yeah, yeah,
And that's what you're describing right there. Like your classroom is not only a physical literal classroom, it is also a frame of mind about how you educate and who you educate. The
hmm,
same way that when your mind is working on a picture or whatever, you're in the studio. Your body just isn't
yeah,
physically
yeah,
in the
yeah,
studio. And I feel like that's a distinction that a lot of people have already made, but didn't realize they've made it because we're all the time just thinking anyway.
yeah,
But being able to frame that as some sort of ethos in your creativity, I think is really, really helpful because you can take this with you literally anywhere. You just have to realize like you can do that anytime.
hmm,
And it's another small luxury we find being
yeah.
humans with the brains that we have.
I think also for me, there's this element of, I know I function better as like a human being when I'm active. And so how can I be active more often, however that might manifest? And instead of going like, oh, I'm a teacher at this space and I'm an artist at this space. It's like, no, well,
It's so hard to be binary, like, you
yeah,
it's hard to separate when those things bleed together so easily or
yeah,
well, and it takes more effort to separate those things than it does to let them naturally intermingle,
yeah.
so I don't.
And then honestly, so one of my influences now, one of the people that I'm researching is this artist named Joseph Boys, who's an educator as well as like a performance artist, as well as like like an activist, and like the conversation and all the things that I'm kind of talking about and doing. He's done, and I'm trying to learn more about how that all works together as well. So it's like it all makes sense, you know. It's like there's a tradition for this as well that I'm trying to figure out more about.
Yeah, I mean, I was this makes me think of a conversation I had with a fellow recently, being intentionally derivative, not like sloppy or lazy or appropriative,
Mhm.
but intentionally derivative. We are both doing things that have been set in motion by people long ago, continued in
Yeah,
practice by people between here and then for years and years and years. But like we should be respectful of that and then also make it individualistically our own
yeah.
with our own style and our own tools and all the jazz, but also like never forget that you didn't do this first and you're not going to make it
Yeah.
entirely original, so you have to be intentional about how you
Mhm.
incorporate things into your work.
Well, that's actually one of my personal definitions of what art is. It's like so I mean, art is everything, but and when you're looking at art that's kind of capital A art, the art that gets studied, the art that's kind of has meaning and is kind of considered, I don't know, considerable, you know, you know, um, you as an artist, that's what we do. We recognize and study our influences and see how what we're doing um, in relationship with that legacy, and how do we move it forward and how do we push it forward. Is like I think there's a I honestly believe that that's one of the biggest mistakes, especially young artists make, but a lot of artists make, is they try to be too original. They think they can't, they think they have to ignore influences or something. They think they have to live in a different space. It's like, no, you want to immerse yourself in everything that's as much as you can and what's going on, but especially the ones that resonate with you. Figure out what they're talking about, what they're trying to do, and then build on that legacy. And I think that's something that doesn't get taught soon enough in art school.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's you kind of pick that up later, often too much late to that and later than
Well, the language I've had about this little idea has changed lately because before I was told the words intentionally derivative,
yeah.
I always described it as a distillation of your influences.
Okay, yeah.
So, um, I used to have a question. It's like, when I started this podcast shenanigan, I had like a list of 13, 14 questions that were like pretty solid, covered all the bases.
Yeah,
But now that I'm almost in like episode 80, whatever,
yeah.
like it is the list has morphed into a totally different set of language for most of the questions, which has been its own fun little rabbit hole to chase.
Okay, cool.
But the question in its original form was, what influences do you have, and do you see those influences in your work, or what influences are there that you don't see in your work? But now it's more, what external factors have you distilled into your creative practice kind of question. So it's all the elements are still there. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
arranged differently with different words, and the intention is all still there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been neat to watch these questions change, but the meaning and the points I want to get at are still the same.
Yeah.
It's been really neat.
Yeah.
And I feel like they change a little bit every time I sit down and have a conversation with somebody, because it's been a month and I've had the language of intentionally derivative now, and I'm propagating it in this
Yeah.
conversation, and it makes way more sense than the distillation language I was using earlier. So, as you do your series and see your techniques change through that, I've had several dozen of these
Yeah,
conversations now,
yeah.
and I see the language change for the difference, and often the better. So it's a neat leapfrogging of different like patches of logic
Yeah.
between you and the next guest and the previous guest and everybody in this little chain. It's been it's also been a really fun exercise to ask these questions in different ways. So there's a couple different lenses on this issue that I can take as we both enjoy our Mexicokes.
Yes, definitely. I mean, just because you brought up the kind of influences, kind of like intentionally derivative idea, places I'm playing, like I mentioned Joseph Beuys. One of the first places was Basquiat. Jean-Michel Basquiat is somebody that's influential to me for a lot of reasons. I some not I wouldn't say the style has been referenced similar, but I don't think it's as similar as people reference it to me. But it reminds sometimes my style reminds them of what he does. But I also like how, for me, it's like he's highly um what's the word, intellectual about his work,
Hmm.
and so I'm trying to get closer to that. I'm trying to learn more, I'm trying to educate myself more to be that, but he's also highly prolific, which is something that am as well. So I really like that idea of being like continually making work. um and then just the idea of kind of that pop star, rock star artist aspect of things is like, it's interesting to think about that, like that kind of like what happened to him in his career, and how that it like that kind of went against the norms of the art kind of I don't know, expectations of the art world, and
Hmm.
like kind of do it at that time. Shepard Fairey, somebody that's like I'm really kind of looking deeper into, for like the multiples of, like he does print work, and so like even though I'm not doing print work, I'm drawing multiples. There's like some similarity, but also the activism side of things. I don't know. So those are some of that kind of idea.
And you've sort of pulled the strings and see how they file into your creative
Yeah.
everything.
And
And I really like it when people can sort of trace the paths from the external factors to the internal factors, because I feel like as a creative person that warrants some introspection, because you may want to just do stuff with no thought and just be zen or whatever about it and just
yeah,
get
yeah,
into it and do it. But it's really difficult to separate the outcomes from the inputs. So being at least a little bit mindful or aware of how the things you enjoy or feel affected by end up influencing what comes out of you uh, should be a point of introspection, at least a little bit. Which brings me to a question. I think this is my favorite question. Um,
pressure's on now.
oh yeah, uh, you got to have a good answer for this one.
Yeah.
So in your creative
Okay.
practice, I think I touched on this a little bit when we met. In your creative practice, is there uh, a sense of genesis for your own work, or a sense of being a conduit for the ideas to move through you? And where, if in your workflow, do you find Zen, or just the uh, the going with the flow of it?
Okay, there's a couple answers to this because I was just thinking about this today, actually, with the idea. So, especially when it comes to the work that I'm doing, that has oftentimes I draw a lot of figures, like black figures, people of color, that I'm a white artist. So it's like thinking about, what does that mean? What's that relationship? And I was thinking about, all I am is the tool. I am the tool to feed the message, feed the idea through. I am not the creator of the idea. I am just the tool for the idea. And it's like trying, as I do these, as I continue on for it, trying to like have these discourse, have these conversations, trying to really remember that idea. Like I'm not the one sort of making the work. The work is just, I'm just changing the way it's it's like the idea already exists. It's just going through me and coming out to look a different way that maybe somebody else can recognize that couldn't recognize it the way it was done before.
Yeah.
Whatever that meant, like that. And that's one of the things I try to think about a lot is like, um, or that's one of the things I think about is the reason I want to have an activist standpoint with my work is like there's a lot of ideas in our society that get lost. A lot of people I think can't hear it because it's coming from the mouth of a politician or it's said in a way of in a way that's not as understandable because it's too academic or whatever it might be. But if they see a picture, if they see a drawing, if they see a painting, maybe that one person that couldn't access it somewhere else can access it once it's been done this way. So
So your description of your work as bringing awareness to important causes is a more shrouded way to say I'm a conduit for these ideas and exposure of
That's
them.
that's what I'd like to think.
Yeah.
That's what I want to. I think that makes sense to me to stand because I definitely don't to stand in that kind of reality. Because I definitely don't want to replace voices, especially a lot of these people that I'm trying to amplify are
Oppressed or belittled in some way.
that too, but also it's not like I'm not trying to put myself above them. I'm trying to just keep their voices going and amplifying it even more. So that's kind of one answer to that idea. The other to talk about the Zen idea, there are definitely times where, especially with this kind of, we talked a little bit about the mark making process and how I do things and bracing the mistake. There are times where it feels like I'm almost blacked out while I'm making because it's like I'll come back to it like how the heck did I do that?
Yep, yep, yep.
How it's like what happened? It's like and especially like the more it's like I mean it's true it's like that it goes with the practice of it. It goes with when you do the repetitive, especially my work is very repetitive and stuff at times. Um that helps you that meditative practice, that repetition of it um there's something that kind of can take over and sometimes you just don't even recognize what you might be doing what mark is might be making the muscle memory. It's like it's not connected to your conscious brain anymore in a way, and like there are definitely elements of that in my work when I'm making stuff that I'm just like how did I just nail that? Like if I tried to think about it, it probably wouldn't have come out. But the fact that I wasn't thinking about it, it's just like that looks exactly like I was trying to go for, but I had no idea how I accomplished it.
Well, one of the things that really struck me about the exhibition that you're doing right now is that you're doing a series of 69 pieces and 72 pieces. So I was like, damn, somewhere probably between the first third and the last third, there's a whole bunch of just doing that is
Yeah,
just doing.
yeah.
And I saw the pieces on the wall and stuff, and I was just like, I wonder how many of these he remembers just individually making happen. Like, do you remember 55, 56, and 57, or did you just like look down at 43 and look up at 62? That kind of thing.
Okay, so that brings up another idea though too. So part of this work, I do probably remember them more because it's like it's when it's a shorter span of pieces because I do like on my live streams just that in my studio I'll do 3 at a time, 4 at a time. When I do that, they kind of start to I just kind of like happen. But because this is such a big endeavor,
You were doing like 10 a day,
yeah,
11 a day.
my it, there's a fatigue factor that comes in, which actually turns up the awareness because I have to go. I got to do this. I
Yeah.
have to be present, which is important. This is why which is important to me because it means that I am present
Hmm.
to the work. And then it relates to me for the bigger picture of the idea of you have to be present to these topics. You have to be present to the protests. You have to be present. It doesn't just happen overnight. It happens day after day after day. You have to when you're tired, when it feels like nobody cares, when it feels like whatever's happening, you still have to show up for these ideas when it feels like nobody's listening, whatever. And so all that's kind of important, a part of it too for me. So it's a mixture.
Yeah, so
It's like
it's an awareness that is respectfully commanded by the
yeah,
topic, but
yeah,
also like you doing the things.
yeah. So
So there's an interplay
there's
there.
probably an element like each piece is I'm probably a little more aware, but once I'm in the piece, there's like a flow state that happens inside of it. Once I got like, okay, next one, that 15 to 30 minutes that it takes to accomplish that piece, there's like a flow state. And I don't necessarily recognize every brush stroke, but I recognize, okay, now it's time to start the next
Right.
one.
So
Yeah.
it peaks
Yeah.
when you have to be aware and apparent that a new one is about to start,
Yeah.
and then it just sort of you ease into that,
Yeah.
and then it peaks your intentional awareness
Yeah.
peaks again when you start the next one.
And the other part of it too is like I try to, maybe it would be different if I did them all like exactly the same. Like, but since I'm trying to manipulate the backgrounds and do different, each one has a uniqueness to them, and I write different things on them. So it brings me in and out of that space that way too. It's like, okay, what am I going to do with the background on this one? So it's like, I don't want to repeat it. And then I'm curating the space as it goes around too. It's like, I don't want too many of the same looking ones clustered together.
Right.
So as I go around, it's like I want to make sure like two that won't be side by side that look the same, so it kind of scatter or whatever, you know. So it's a flow state of in and out of the intention all the way during it for multiple
Well,
reasons.
that's so far removed from how that works for me.
Yeah,
Because I'll like draw the stuff out and do all the intentional things, but on the top of the ordeal, like you and I sort of talked about that day. And then for the next 1 to 4 hours, it's just all like just, flow
yeah,
state, go do the thing, action, reaction.
yeah,
No like restarting because I started a new piece, no refresh because it's not a series, it's just one piece start to finish. So that is like a condensing and then restarting that, like you're looping this whole ordeal, and that sounds very foreign to how I make stuff.
yeah, yeah,
But it works for you and how you do it, and I think that's awesome,
yeah.
but super foreign to my workflow.
One of the things I just want to add into that doesn't necessarily relate to what we're discussing right now, but I just want to talk about my artwork and process is, so I don't have the tolerance for working on one piece for like months or whatever.
Oh man, it makes me like really curious what the headspace was for all these oil painters way back in the
Yeah.
day.
So like my kind of remedy for that in a way is to work quickly but do lots,
Hmm.
and that kind of helps give the illusion's not the right word, but like um it's like if you just pull off one of my drawings, it's like it took me 30 minutes to make, and it's like, somebody will look, I don't like to, that time, the 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 layman's viewpoint, the general audience's viewpoint on art is how long did it take equates with how much it's like worth, or
Right,
in
yeah.
in a lot of ways, monetarily, but also just their time they're willing to give to it. So it has to have, the artist has to put X amount of time into it before they'll consider it. So, but for me, it's like, it's less about the piece of work than the conversation, right? So, but most people don't always make that
Yeah, that
connection.
math isn't for everybody.
Yeah. So if I do 141 drawings over 13 days, it starts to bring it to that space. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, because the effort and the time investment
yeah,
becomes more apparent when you say it like that.
yeah,
Like, this sounds like a lot of work,
yeah, yeah.
and then people feel that sort of commands some respect.
So one of the things when I do when I've done commissions, when I do things, that I never tell people how long it takes me to do something. Just like they ask, how long is it gonna? I'm like,
I love that.
I never, because it's like it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't matter because what happens is they put value on it based on time, and
Yeah,
it's like,
that algebra equation
yeah,
behind their eyeballs just
yeah.
screws the whole
It's
conversation.
like, so I usually, without being too much of an asshole, I sometimes I go, well, I did go to 4 years of grad or the 3 years of graduate school. I went to so how many years is that? So it's probably taking me, X amount of years to make this piece of.
Right? I couldn't make it if I wasn't the person that I am with
Yeah.
the experience and education that I have, and it took me a long time to get here.
But the unfortunate part though is that I live stream pretty much everything I do, so they can like they can look at it. They can be like, wait a second.
The transparency is there.
Yeah. It's like you can find out how long it took me to make this, but
Yeah, if
if
you
you
really
didn't,
want
if
to
you don't
dig.
know, if you're asking the question, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, you're welcome to do your homework.
Yeah.
um, I've gotten into like filming time lapses and stuff. So
Okay.
that presentation of my work is something that I've slowly bled into a little bit. Not I've live streamed some stuff from the PlayStation because
Mm,
there's
cool.
I can stream from the console onto Twitch, and there's some 3D like VR softwares that I really like using. And I've done that a little bit. But as far as just like I'm gonna sit down with this piece, YouTube or Instagram live, and we're gonna
Yeah.
that's not been my flow yet.
Well, it's like, okay, so this again, I'm gonna bring something up that wasn't directly asked, but part of why I'm doing my work this way. So there's tons of people that make work on live streams and things
Hmm.
like that, and just work on social platforms. Honestly, 90% of it's like just fluff in a way. It's just like eye candy. It's just like whatever. There's not a lot of meaning behind it. So it's like doing this work in this way. I'm trying to. I don't know. This as I'm about to say this, I feel like this is kind of a pompous thing to say or arrogant, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's trying to elevate the concept of live streaming artwork. It's like let's live stream artwork that actually has substance to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
it's
mean, it is and it's not.
yeah,
But if you're going to be intentional about it, and that's just another avenue of avenue of access
yeah,
and distribution that most people employ for things that aren't so intellectual, and the art you work often has a message, so I don't see why you shouldn't use those same channels.
yeah,
you know I'll be damned if it's something heavy, but it's
yeah.
something equally valid and worth, and often impacts harder than you know, whatever anime character somebody drew on live stream
Yeah.
today. Like these are real life things that have an issue and gravity to them.
And one of the things I noticed, so during the pandemic, we were all stuck inside or whatever, and a lot of the art circles were basically complaining about the way that it was hard to share work because you couldn't see it in person, you couldn't do all this stuff. And I already kind of had a value in video work and I was already working in video, but I wasn't working in live streaming yet. But it really kind of clicked even harder when I noticed like there was a community that really figured out how to convey messages through this medium, and like the gaming community is
Oh
like
yeah.
how they different how they did it. That's like the interest, the visual interest that they were able to create through this medium. And I was like, well, I'll want to try to do that, but why aren't more artists looking at this community and trying to figure it out in a way? And so I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, you said you stream your gaming sometimes, so you already had that foot in the door with that community. So you were a bit perhaps more analytical about the hows and the whys of that being an engaging format.
Well, yeah, and so I love live streaming. Like I would live stream every single day if I could. It's the best thing. It's totally awesome because so when I first started, it was gaming a little bit. I did a couple live streams. Nobody saw them really. It was just like I don't know. But at a point, okay, two points. I was playing this mobile game that I was pre-recording and putting on my channel, and it gained it kind of helped boost my channel the most ever. And so it's like I was like, okay, there's an audience for this. So I transitioned from just pre-recorded to the live streaming aspect of things. And then when that happened, there was already an audience for me. So they in the chat.
Hmm.
And when you get that, for me personally, the chat is a freaking drug. It's like it is so like if there's nobody in the live stream, it sucks. But if there's people in the chat, it's the best
Oh,
thing.
it's there's an extra tier of just awesome when people are engaged, and
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
It's so awesome. And then luckily, but prior to that, I'd been doing a lot of vloggy, talking to the camera stuff. So I'd already trained myself to talk to a camera like there's an audience behind it,
Hmm.
even though you can't see them. So it was a natural evolution in a way to once I started live streaming, it was easy just to tap into I'm talking to somebody and
Yeah.
not not feeling awkward about there's not really it's just a piece of glass that I'm looking at or
Right.
whatever, it's like
And I think some people never develop that muscle.
yeah. Oh,
But
it definitely takes
yeah,
development, yeah, for
there's
sure.
there you
Because
got
I
to
was there.
practice
I
that.
mean, if you look, you could definitely find my YouTube channel. Like, I start 2014 is when I started taking YouTube serious, and it was just kind of like setting up my phone at the time and just record and trying to get used to what am I looking at, talking to, how do I. It's like the evolution's all there, but and eventually I just started getting more and more comfortable with talking to a camera and
Well,
doing the things.
the videos you're putting on TikTok now, where you're like your weekly recaps or whatever, where you've green screened yourself
Yeah,
onto whatever video of the exhibition you're rocking, and you're just like, hey, you know, this week I did this piece number through this piece number, and this happened this week, and these are the things that I discovered about doing this thing. Uh, Primo,
cool.
yeah,
Thanks.
those are excellent. So keep that
Cool.
up.
Will do, man.
Yeah, I like seeing that, and I think there's something to like being able to see those kind of things from the artist's point of view. So you telling people what's happening inside your head or the things that may not be obvious to them, you being intimately knowledgeable about what you're creating and just sort of giving them like the behind the scenes
Yeah,
inside your head is something that I will always enjoy from any artist or creative person, period.
yeah,
Because one of the reasons I like these conversations and candid, articulate of the craft conversations with creative people is because these are the things you would never get in a standard interview.
yeah,
Like one of the examples, the Hollywood Reporter does a roundtable sort of thing, super structured, super edited, cut up, but you get to see people like Tom Hanks and Pedro Pascal, like whatever Hollywood person, you get to sit down and see them have an intentional conversation with their peers about their craft.
mhm,
And to me, that's about as genuine of a creative conversation
yeah.
as you could possibly have.
You're talking about those actors roundtables?
Yeah,
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 I
I
love
love
those.
yeah,
I love
exactly.
those.
So, Gary Oldman was on one, Robert De Niro was on one, and they're just kind of sitting around talking about what it's like to play challenging roles,
Yeah,
whatever. And I'm just like, holy shit, look like these guys are really laying it down about how they've done what they've done for years,
yeah, yeah.
and you're not gonna get that anywhere else.
I would have the perfect life if it was doing this on the regular basis, like conversations with creatives all the time, and it was sustainable, and doing just artist talks where I'm talking about my process to like an audience.
Yeah,
That would be amazing, and doing quick Q&As with the audience. I would love that. And then like teaching every once in a while and making my artwork and like if that was my life and it was sustainable,
absolutely.
done.
And that's
Mic drop.
yeah, that's one of the things, if I were able to like level this up, I
Yeah.
would love to have this kind of conversation with an audience and an artist where we do, 20 minutes of Q&A, and the next 40 minutes to an hour is just straight conversation about the craft and the ethos.
Yeah.
And I've I'm gonna shit on my environment a little bit here, and I've been really disappointed at the reception that I've gotten to this idea around town because I I guess the
Yeah.
money isn't exactly just right up front with this
Yeah.
idea, but the value that is contained in the media itself, I see right off the bat. Like it's
Yeah.
hard. How can you tell me that there is no value in this conversation we're having right now?
Well, okay. I'm gonna talk to that idea, not knowing exactly what the situation is, but from my experience, experienced something similar. So I did a podcast in the Seattle music scene for many years. I did like almost 300 episodes, but it was like this level in a way, I guess, like where it's like the local musicians talking to them. And the thing that I think I found that makes it hard for people to believe the value of it. Like we understand the value because all of us have a creative process and have a creative story and have value. Like everybody has something to offer,
Hmm.
right? However, the audience as well, like this group of people, but also the larger audience doesn't take it serious unless the person has some social proof of being somewhat elevated. And so I think that might be the same thing that's coming to a problem with what you're describing
Yeah.
is not having those names that can elevate the whole idea on the podcast or whatever, saying like whoever the famous person essentially or the successful person in some viewpoint. And so, man, hopefully let's make sure, let's hope this one, eventually, Zim is like on the cover of some crazy magazine, like, and then it'll elevate the whole
Yeah,
like,
I would love for that. Let's that's what I'm shooting for. But one of the things, like I guess the greater sense of disappointment I have in this
yeah,
particular context is that Knoxville tries to be really maker creator forward in
yeah,
its presentation, but when it comes to putting the people in a place where they could have this sort of thing in the public eye and really showcase the hows and the whys of a creative person, they kind of fumble the bag.
yeah,
Now, for music around town, there's so many stages in this town, and there's music 7 nights a week. That's fine, great, cool, plenty of opportunity for musicians.
yeah,
But the minute you want to highlight any of those people when they're not playing music or on a stage or something, it's just like the interest drops,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
No, that
it's
makes
really
sense.
strange because they want to celebrate all the creativity we have here in town and be really oorah about all this, but when I say, "Hey, I've been doing this thing for a couple years where I highlight our awesome local creators. Can we find a space and a middle ground to where we can make this happen in public?" People are just like, "Oh, mm," and that's really disappointing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. It makes sense to me. I think I understand that for sure.
But it would be less stingy if Knoxville wasn't really like, "Hey, we love to celebrate our
Yeah.
creative people."
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, Seattle is the same way. It's like they talk all about, even with the music, it's talking about music. They talk about how they so love the music community and scene and all this stuff, but it's only if you're famous.
Yeah,
They don't love it if you're just trying to make it happen. It's like, and there's lots of things that happen, like even little things. It's like all of a sudden you can't park anywhere around venues. It's like, so it's like how people are trying to get to the shows and stuff. How are you supporting the community, the
right. If you
music community, if it's impossible to get to, things like that. So there's things like that would happen, but then it's just like the outlets only talk about the artists that are already famous versus the ones that are grinding away and stuff. But
well,
then there's like levels and levels of it. But
luckily, we have some really good organizations around town that love promoting the local stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So,
The problem, so like the okay, I'm just gonna assume a problem here, but the problem is if I'm equating it the same, it's like there's this kind of like bubble that happens where it's hard to break out of that little thing. It doesn't like,
the celebrated local,
yeah, it's like all like it's like they're almost like pride themselves on it staying small
yeah,
versus it actually
like
growing.
we're really proud of being indie
Yeah.
and only want to ever be
And then
that.
so you get stuck in that. It's like, well, we need to kind of break out of, we need it to grow. We actually need to make a little money off this. We need to like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like,
That there's definitely traces of that issue
yeah,
in this for sure. But I mean, to that example, there's also the exception to that example
yeah.
where some folks have just, once they bust that bubble, they went straight to the top.
Then, and I'm gonna be somewhat pompous here, and that's okay. But sometimes it's like that local, that pride in the small. It's like you're also probably not always getting the best quality, but they are so they're so proud of their local thing. It's like, well, yeah, it's like I love you, you're great, but you're not quite good enough yet. So, and we need to get
Yeah.
the ones that are good enough to the other, and that's it's like it's an interesting
There's definitely a gray area there between like the people that need to polish whatever it is they're
yeah,
doing and the people that have polished and progressed a
yeah,
little bit. So there's a friction there for sure. And I've had the luxury of having people in your seat that have been like, since I started paying taxes as an 18-year-old, I've been a creative professional supporting myself,
yeah,
blah blah blah. And I've had people that are just like, yeah, I've got 3 day jobs and I do this on the side. So
yeah,
I've had the luxury of having the conversation across all points in the
yeah,
spectrum, and some folks realize how privileged they are to be a self-supporting creator from the get-go, and
yeah,
I think the people that are working 2 jobs and doing the art on the side, I relate to that more. Maybe appreciate or have a different lens onto the topic that
yeah,
that makes them more grateful when they can like drop a regimented responsibility and pick up a little more freedom in
Yeah,
their
yeah.
creative life. So it's a weird thing seeing where people's lenses are on
Mhm.
that topic. And I'm privileged to be able to pick the brains of all the places on the spectrum.
For me, when I was doing my podcast, I was always trying to seek out the creatives that were hungry,
Mm,
because sometimes I don't know it. I think they're hungry because they're really talented and they're like kind of doing stuff. But then I have the conversation with them and they're like, "Oh, I'm just okay with, playing the same club every night." I'm like,
yeah,
this is
right. Whoops.
this isn't the conversation that I really want to have. I'm trying to make the conversation of like, how do we have greater success with all this,
Yeah.
and like, as a community, and build it up, and like, how can we support each other? But if it's like, if there's kind of like this anti ability to create that greater success, because like it's like the same conversation of like artists that's always willing to lowball the price of something. It's like you're actually hurting the whole community because you're not
You're taking
elevating.
value away from it.
Yeah, you're not saying, no, this is what this work demands. It's there's a similar kind of idea in that, but it's also hard to, some artists will never be able to demand more. And I mean, and as we know, you get what you pay for.
Mhm.
So, you
Yep.
know, it's like, if somebody's lowballing, you're not going to get the best work out of it, just because that's what happens. But there's part elements of all that conversation
Mhm.
in this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a privilege, or a privilege and a curse to be able to
Yeah.
like look at this from so many different angles. And it's also a privilege to say that Knoxville is super dense with people doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not to say in any way that we lack any point on the spectrum, because we have it all and we're lucky to have it. But there's definitely like a lack of appreciation or admiration, or something for people that aren't on one side of this spectrum. I'm a firm believer in rising tide raises all
Yeah.
ships,
Yeah.
because community is better when we're all doing good. And
But yeah.
that's one of the reasons, like, I'm very open with the definitions of what a creative person is and who I put on that microphone, because I'm not trying to be exclusionary because I don't think what you're doing is cool or it's not creative
Yeah.
enough. So it's like, here, please talk about what you're doing. You can be on this platform just like all the other people that are doing this for a living
Yeah.
and do well for themselves, whatever that may be. This is a equal opportunity microphone for people to come talk about their work. There's
Yeah.
no like cutoff for whatever.
I think it's important that my experience, that all ships, the tide rises, all ships, that kind of concept. It's important for the people that have found success to keep reminding the community that that's happens,
Hmm.
and kind of come back, because my experience with that, because I feel like there's a lot of creatives that feel competition with each other more than they need to, because I'm a firm believer that there's plenty of audience for all of us. There's more than enough audience for all of us. But we just have to, support each other and do that thing. And what I've physically experienced that was with my game streaming stuff, where, there was a small community of streamers that were streaming the same game, and you could feel the tension between us, but I was kind of leading it, and I was always promoting the other channels. I was always saying, like, this is, and so it started to, you could feel the narrative change, or you could feel it change from the other streamers, and they were more inclusive, and they were more willing to promote each other,
Yeah,
and it was like, because I was so loud about it, and I think that might be part of what needs to happen, is like, people with success need to keep reminding the community, is like, let's support them, like everybody, but I think, I don't know, I do think people get kind of protective. They feel like they're going to run out of, because it is, I mean, as you probably heard this on many of the podcasts you listen to and stuff, of successful creatives. It's like they're always kind of, the fear of it stopping or
mm,
running out or
yeah,
whatever
absolutely.
is prevalent. It's like, even the most successful ones, you're thinking, as us at our level, going, like, listening to a really success, what we perceive as a really successful person, and they're still saying, like, I I don't know if I'm gonna get another gig after
Yeah, I
this,
don't
you
know if
know?
somebody's gonna commission something next month.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
And I get that, and I there's a degree of that which is perfectly logical and should be considered, but like if that's going to drive you to be competitive instead of collaborative,
yeah.
what good is that for the society you're
Well,
trying to?
okay, so we're getting into a bigger conversation where society has been trained by capitalism, and so that's ruining the whole idea
Oh,
too.
so much it is.
Yeah. So that I mean, that's honestly that's a big probably a big portion. It's like we don't even recognize we don't know what we don't know when it comes to how we're interacting with each other because our capitalistic society has trained us so much for scarcity and
Well,
for
that's back to that. Oh, how much time did you spend? How much is this worth?
yeah,
Like that chain of logic would never exist without resources being tied to time and effort.
yeah,
Like that would never correlate if those two things weren't put together in that way.
yeah,
Like, telling somebody, "Oh, I spent 8 hours on this painting. I need $1,200 for it." Like that sentence would never be spoken if these things weren't so innately tied together by the structure of society we live in.
yeah.
Damn it.
I know. It's fucked.
So fucked. But we're here now, so the best thing we can do is make the best of it and swim upstream.
Well, it's like, and this brings me to I've been thinking about this lately with my work itself. It's like I almost part of me I would love to be sustainable with my work. And because my work deals with social topics, it almost feels like I shouldn't even be thinking about any kind of monetary idea with it.
Because that's not the intent.
Yeah, and it really I mean it messes with my head in some ways and like how am I supposed because a lot of my work I don't well, I always sell my work. If somebody wants to buy my work, I always sell it. But there
Yeah,
are a lot of work that I can't I feel I just can't take keep the money. So I'll donate 100% to some cause that idea that I drew is associated with or
right.
something just I'll donate it to 100% to something else. Which reminds me like the piece that I just did, the 7269. My hope is I'm not going to sell them individually. My hope is to sell the whole, if it sells to the whole exhibition sells, and I'm going to donate quarters of it to different spaces. So 25% to, um, was it? Oh, I forget the way it's. Well, 25% to every town for gun safety. It's like a institution. 25% to Operation Olive Branch, which is happening right now because of the Palestine Gaza situation. It's an institute that's pairing larger kind of creators and larger people with families that need to evacuate, and they're helping fundraise for them. But I would donate directly to that institution,
Right.
and then is it Ernwa? UN. It's the UN.
WRA, is that it? UNWRA?
I think so for their helping the
Yeah,
Palestine thing.
they had their moment being smeared in the media recently,
Yeah,
so
which is messed up. So I want to donate 25% to that, and then the last 25% is just to keep this sustainable,
right.
you know. But that would be the goal. So
No, that sounds pretty damn valiant to
yeah,
me. Like, run it.
yeah,
Um, have you been so your the last series you did like this?
yeah.
What was um the reaction to it, and have you been approached by anybody wanting to buy the entire series or part it out, or like how
Yeah.
has that
So
happened?
what? Yeah, yeah. That influences directly my thought process around this series in terms of selling and all that stuff. Because so the original what we're talking about is I did 116 drawings of Ketanji Brown Jackson. And similar idea. It took me 10 days. I did like 10 to, I did more at times. I forget 10 to 15 drawings a day. I won't go into full details. There is a video on my YouTube, all of the breaking down that entire experience. But had the intention of selling them individually. I thought maybe more people would be interested. I did sell a few. I sold, I don't know, I can't remember the numbers. I think I have 105 left of the 116. So that was 11. Four of them, three of them are Ketanji Brown Jackson has three of them that just went to her. The person that connected us together has one. So those four did not get sold. So that left what, six?
Mm,
No,
7.
seven. Seven. I think I sold seven of the 116. So it didn't sell a lot. And so, but what I did with them was I donated 70% to what was called NARA. NARA was it's an abortion kind of pro life or pro choice, I should
Mhm.
say, pro choice group. They've changed their name. I don't know what they've changed it to now, but NARAL was the old version. But anyways, so I had the intention of hopefully I was hoping I could sell more of them. It didn't happen. So it kind of broke the set in a way that was like, this is a bummer. Now I have 105 of them. It's to be able to say that Ketanji Brown Jackson has three of them feels good, but to say that there's seven of them out there that are just random, it just is like, now what? It's like it just feels awkward. And if I'm trying to like get other people, like maybe a larger institute, into buying the whole set, the rest of them or something, it's like, okay, but there's a bunch of them that are not here. It's
Yeah.
like, so I decided this time to keep them all together, as I was saying, not sell them individually. I would sell them individually maybe if
If
like
if it felt right.
if like honestly, if like the closing reception there was like 200 people showed up and like half of them were wanted to buy one and they were like, we want to buy one, I'd probably just say, okay, let's
Yeah,
do it,
right.
because enough of them would move
Right.
out. But because I just wouldn't want to sell like two, three, four to 10 or whatever, just a few of them, and then have most of them left over and then be like, what do I do with them? Then I'd much rather one place just get all of them. I'm allowing Justin Jones and Justin Pearson to take any ones they want, because
It's them.
yeah. So that might happen. I'm not sure. But does that answer the question
Yeah,
around
yeah, yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that's my thought process around that. Yeah.
that's a since you've done one series, that is now an informed set of decisions
Yeah.
based on experiences.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's always hard. It's very difficult to say no. Honestly, like I've had a few people come through the gallery asking or saying or like, or they just say, I'm thinking about which one I want. I'm like, well, too
I
bad.
hope you want all of them.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not planning to sell them individually. Sorry.
Sorry to bust that bubble for you, but
But it's like hard to know. I mean, I do get way too optimistic about a lot of things. Like I have this weird like crazy optimism about things, and I'm like, maybe they'll all sell, people will come, but the truth usually is it's, oh no, it's not gonna happen.
right.
So I just have to rely on the experience versus the hope. And so I'm just allowing myself to sit in the experience, and I'd be just be surprised if it changes versus
Yeah.
being hopeful that it
I
will be
said
different.
expectations
Yeah,
we were talking about.
yeah. So we'll
S-
see.
so we're at 2 hours right now.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was quick. If you we can do one or two more
Yeah,
questions and
whatever.
then kill it.
Yeah.
So what does the notepad in your phone look like?
Notepad on my phone
or your journal, whatever fits that bill in your life.
so I use Notes. I'm an Apple product person, and I use the
You're one
app
of those.
Apple, yeah. I don't know, whatever. And I think it's called Notes. It's like a yellow pad, and I use it. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's not useful anymore because there's too many notes in it, and I'm like, it's so disorganized. So I have to go and figure out how to organize it and put things, because I use it for like my educational stuff that we've talked about. Every class that I teach, I have it open while I'm teaching so I can write notes for the next time, kind of, or whatever. So that it's like there, I'm using it for that. But then, like, for the exhibition, I'll have it open for writing down ideas. And because I'm dyslexic, I use it a lot for spell checking. I'll write down, if I'm going to write something on the piece of artwork, I write it in there first so it'll spell check for me. And then I'll write it on the piece of work. But yeah, I use it pretty consistently. I also have a
Yeah, you brought a physical little notepad in here.
physical notepad because I've gotten in grad school, especially, I've learned the value of writing down just everything that's been sort of referenced or influenced, like especially with artwork, books, just different things that maybe I'll want to look up. I can't remember things anymore. like my short-term memory is really bad, so I have to write it down. Otherwise, I won't remember. And maybe I'll remember in a week. Oh, that's what we were talking
Yeah.
about. But my short, so I'll have to write, especially names. I'm really bad with names. So I do use it. But it's not very useful. It's not as useful as it could be because it's not organized enough,
Yeah.
you know? But
So
yeah.
so it's a little bit of chaos in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So run people give people the rundown about the exhibition that's happening right now, just to sort of recap our conversation about
Sure,
it.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So right now, I just got done, or I'm at the Hiram Van Gordon Gallery at Tennessee State University. It started on May 13th. I did a live stream performative drawings from the 13th to the 25th, I think it was. It was Saturday, 13 days. It's open now. Today, we're recording this on a Tuesday. It's open for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Closing receptions on Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Um, and it was 72 drawings of Justin Jones, 69 drawings of Justin Pearson, basically to amplify the call for gun reform. But there's so much more than that. It's all wrapped up in a lot of what's going on in society right now. Um, yeah,
Sweet. And where can people find you on the internet one more time?
yeah. So I'm all over. I'll just run down. I have a website, just thezim.com. It's not the most updated. I'll have to update it more, but best places are social. I have Instagram at underscore the Zim. I have TikTok at the Zim. I have YouTube, which is the place that I'm most trying to promote. It's the Zim video. So youtube.com/slash the Zim video, all one word. Those are the best places. So yeah.
And you've got link trees and all that jazz. We can follow the breadcrumbs, find all the stuff you've
Yeah. I
got.
mean, if you go to one place, you should be able to get to the other places pretty easily.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, man, thanks for reacting kindly to a stranger on the internet once again.
Oh, you bet.
And thanks for being on. Thanks for driving from Nashville to the secret studio here in Knoxville. And
Is that what you
this,
call it? The secret
well,
studio?
I mean, it's a amorphous plastic thing.
Okay.
It's on location at times.
Okay,
It's
cool.
not always in what may or may not be my living room.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I
Oh,
really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It was great to see you doing your thing at the gallery. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I will certainly keep an eye on what you're going
oh,
to be up to.
th-
So,
thanks.
this has been the latest episode of the KAAMP. That is the Knoxville Area Artist Network and Platform podcast thing. And this is a out of network episode, I guess. And there we go. Thanks, Zim. We will talk at you next time, everybody.
Thank you. Peace.